Hey golfers, welcome to the next Second Swing Fitting Live. We have Bryan Arnold here with us. Bryan did a live driver fitting with us. I think it was 2021, earlier in the year.
Yeah, it was probably about last March or so.
Last March, yeah. And he reached out to us recently, and he mentioned that he wanted to go through a wedge fitting. Specifically, you're interested in SM8, correct?
Yep.
And I mentioned this time of the year, it's an interesting time of the year because we know there's going to be newer stuff coming out here soon. I think I can say the word SM9. I think we can say prototype or anything like that. I think the fact that he had some success on tour over the weekend. The winner was using the new prototype wedges, so I think we can probably say that now it's Titleist SM9s coming out here too. So we're in an interesting spot, but regardless of what we end up with regards to specs with these wedges, SM9s are going to be pretty much the same. We're going to be along the same board with regards to bounce and grind and lie, length, loft, and golf shaft and like that. So, Bryan, tell me about your wedge game here to start off. What wedges are you playing? What lofts have you got on them?
Well, I do play the Callaway, the S grind, 58 degree, 9 degree, or 9 bounce.
9 degrees bounce, yep.
I don't use it a whole lot, but I will use it.
Yep.
And my sand wedge is a 54 degree Callaway Jaws wedge. It's got a little more bounce, 16 degrees of bounce.
Yep.
And I kind of.
Do you feel like you'd like having more bounce, or?
I do, especially, around the greens and stuff. I like to use a little bit more bounce, and kind of, if I hit behind it, I kind of get away with it more. And instead of, in the past, I'd get less bounce and kind of dig a little bit and hit a lot more fat shots. So.
Got it. And we'll talk about your attack angle and what kind of bounce that you should fit into. I'm going to say it now before we even get into that part. Is versatility is important. So I love the fact that the first two wedges you brought up have different bounces on them, different grinds. Which, if you want to perform well with your wedge game, we all know wedges is your scoring clubs. We need versatility on there. So we got those two, and then I believe you have a wedge.
Well, I've got a 50 degree Callaway forged.
Yep.
Not sure the bounce on. 10 degrees of bounce.
10 degrees of bounce. Okay.
And then I got my.
And then you got your wedge with the set.
Yeah, the Diablo. Just what came with the set, 45 degrees.
Yep. And I ran over to look in the lie angle machine just to double check, and it is at 45 degrees aloft.
I'm not sure the bounce on it, but.
Yeah, it's going to have a little bit more bounce on it with being a wedge with the set.
But,
so, pretty good with regards to gapping. Ideally, you want to have a 4 to 6 degree gap, depending on how many wedges you have in your bag. 10 to 15 yard gap between each club. I'm going to ask you now, do you have different yardages with these wedges, or is it just a stock swing?
I do. Well, from what I used to remember, this was quite a few years ago, but my 58 would go about 100 yards.
Yep.
And then my 54 would go 110.
Yep.
And my 50 would go 120. And then my pitching wedge, it goes about 135.
135. So it's a little bit more of a distance gap between.
Yeah, so I didn't know if that's the right gap to kind of have at that point, start going 15 yards, or it seems like when I'm out on the course, it would be nice to kind of close that gap a little bit there, but.
Yeah, well, right now we're going 5-4-4 essentially. So that could be part of the reason. Loft is probably the number one reason why the ball is going to go further, because there's a larger difference in the loft between them. I'm also going to look at your wedges now. For our golfers, I'm going to highly recommend to replace wedges a little bit more often than you did.
Yeah.
Noticing it's hard. I don't know if we can see here, but the wedge here is very, very worn. Club face and the sole's very, very worn here as well. Titleist have come out with a suggestion. Every 75 rounds of golf that you play, you're going to lose about 1,000 RPMs of spin.
Oh.
Which essentially what that equates to is about 8 feet of rollout difference. So, yes, you do probably adjust to your game a little bit more. If you have worn grooves, you're probably going to play it where it's going to roll out a little bit more. You just get used to it, right? Yeah. But just know that, performance-wise, placing your wedges is probably a little bit more important, and especially kind of looking here, and I think you grabbed that other wedge here, your face is.
Yeah, this one's pretty rough too.
It's very, very rough.
Yeah.
And you're going to see that with your higher lofted wedges. Those are the ones you use out of the sand. Those are the ones that you use more often around the green. And that's going to generate more wear on your wedges. So it's important to replace your wedges. I replace my sand wedge and my lob wedge at least once or twice a year. The others, pitching wedge, gap wedge, I don't use as much. They're more full swing. It depends on how much you practice too. But yeah, but just important to note, I'm guessing you obviously looking at the models you've got here, like MD3, you've had these wedges for a while. So it's time, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So that's important to kind of talk about. One thing I also kind of noticed here is you got a couple of different golf shafts in them as well. So you got like the stock True Timber Dynamic Gold wedge shaft in the 58. Your 50's got the Project X 6.0. And you got Project X 6.0 on the 54, and that's what you're playing in your wedges, right? Okay, so you can kind of go two ways here. You can either play the exact same golf shafts all the way through. That way you know consistency-wise you're playing them. Or you can always go just maybe a little bit softer. We see that on tour a lot. A lot of golfers on tour, they'll play like, say, X100s or 6.5s in there, but they might play a True Timber Dynamic Gold S400, so a stiff flex, but it's still fairly heavy. So we'll talk about wedges, we'll talk about golf shaft, which should end up in there too.
Okay, yeah. I was kind of curious on that. Like, what does that affect the launch angle and spin and having those different flexes in those wedges? It's
player dependent. I'm not going to say it's going to be the golf shaft that's going to be going to affect it. But one thing you do want to do with your wedge game is you do want to launch the ball low, so you can generate and have spin. When you get wear on the club face, and we've seen this when we do water tests, we see mud ball tests, putting mud in the grooves. The ball, you don't have as much surface there. The ball's going to launch very, very high, and it's not going to spin as much. So, depends on how you deliver the club also there too. But ideally, wedge golf players, great wedge players, they launch the ball low and they control the ball flight. And by having a little heavier shaft, they're able to control that ball flight.
Okay.
Yeah, but they also want to spin the ball as well, so they can stop it on a dime. So yeah, interesting kind of conversation there. I mean, I've done both. I've played the same golf shafts all the way through. I've taken a slight little step down. Right now I'm playing 6.5s, I've been playing S400s, so I take a little bit of a step down there between them.
Okay.
Getting back to SM8 wedges, so there's different bounces, there's different grinds, there's different lofts. We've got the whole lot of them right here from 46 all the way through to 60. So we're going to test gapping, because I know gapping was one of your biggest goals today. So we're going to start out with you hitting your pitching wedge so we can get a general idea on how far your clubs go. Then we'll take a look at your other clubs, see how far they're going. And then we'll see how these other clubs kind of fit in. And then we're going to talk about what kind of bounce and grind you should be playing on those wedges. I'm going to ask you kind of what you like to do with each wedge. Like with your sand wedge, do you like to open and close that club face? Or is there a club that you feel like you can chip more with around the green? Is there one that you just feel like is a full swing with? So there's a lot that goes into it. I'm going to say it now, a wedge fitting inside, it is a lot conversation based. Because when we're not outside, playing all the different lies and everything like that. But you get to learn a lot about your golf game based on you're looking at your attack angle, based on looking at how much spin you're generating. And gapping is definitely the most important. And I'm fully confident on doing a wedge fitting inside. I do my wedge fittings inside, and you can learn a lot. But
Absolutely.
A lot of it is just conversation based.
Yeah,
just learning about the golfers and what they're trying to achieve with the game. Yeah. So I'm going to bring these clubs over here. I'm going to give you a chance here to warm up, some wedge shots, and we'll take a look at some numbers, and then we'll get into all these different wedges. And
you want me to hit my 45 degree first?
Yeah, that's your 45 degree pitching wedge here first. So you got the Callaway, Diablo,
Forged.
I'll just put that as a tag here now. Yeah, that's in a few shots. So golf ball, you mentioned you play the Titleist Pro V1, correct?
Yep.
So this is Titleist Pro V1 RCT ball. So we'll be able to keep that consistent as we're testing all the clubs as well.
Okay. A little thin on that one.
Yeah, it's all right. And as you're warming up here, hitting a few shots, hit like 6 or 7 shots with your wedge. I'm just going to get to a couple of questions here real quick that I'm seeing.
Okay.
So last question I'm seeing here, is there any correlation between extra stiff shaft in your wedges and increased spin? There really isn't. It's going to be, a lot of it's going to be to your attack angle, how you compress the ball with your wedge, and how fast that you swing with a wedge. Now, if you are going to swing faster with a wedge, naturally it's going to spin more. If you swing slower, naturally it's going to spin a little bit less. And I don't think it's so much related to the shaft that you're using. It's just the way that you deliver the club. It's all right. It's keep in mind it's January right now. I know you mentioned that you drove 2.5 hours here to do this fitting today. So thanks for coming from central Wisconsin all the way over here.
Yeah, I haven't hit a good one yet, so hopefully I'll better, but
yeah, that was a little bit closer.
Seems like it was still a little thin. Seemed like the spin rate was a little low. I don't know if that's. If it should be a little bit higher, or what kind of spin rate do you want for a pitching wedge? Like
so
10,000?
A lot of it's going to come down to your attack angle. I do see a lot of people when they swing a full swing with a wedge, 9,000 to 10,000 RPMs a spin is usually what I'm used to seeing. Now, that one I think you said you did catch a little bit thin on that one there too. So.
Yeah, so far it seems like everyone's been a little bit thin. So
yeah. That one sounded more solid.
Yeah, that was definitely closer there.
Yeah.
Still
86.
Yeah.
Those wedges, the grooves still, they're a little bit worn, but not as worn as the others there.
Yeah, they got a little wear on there.
Yeah.
But that should be a little more spin there.
Yeah, a little more bowl speed.
Yeah, that's about a little bit
91,
more.
46.
Yeah, that's a little closer there.
And carry distance into the golf season, what were you in 2021? What were you seeing?
Usually I was playing about 135 with this wedge.
Okay.
So that last shot was a lot closer there.
Yep.
So.
A little bit more bowl speed there again.
Yeah, that felt better there.
Yep.
Even
That's
though
pretty crisp. So the other thing to keep in mind here too is even if you're not seeing the 135 numbers here today, just know during this fitting, your swing you're bringing in today. So we can still do a gapping analysis. Priority obviously is to make sure each club goes a certain distance essentially.
Yeah, it should translate no matter what speed I'm swinging.
Correct. Yeah, you could be swinging tomorrow. You could be swinging at 85 miles an hour with your wedge. And the next day you could be swinging at 80. So, it's going to change. Depending on how tight your body is. If you're driven 2.5 hours, there's going to be some differences.
Yeah,
so that one was closer there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of just take a look at some numbers. Let's actually just take out a couple of the ones you didn't quite catch as well. Yeah, this one here is the one you got a little bit thin earlier on based on the launch angle. I mean, we're pretty close here on those shots.
Yeah, those are a little closer.
Carry 122. Yeah, so maybe let's focus on these last 5 shots that you hit with your wedge, and we'll see kind of what we're going to talk about. Okay, so what we're seeing here is bowl speed around about 101 on average. As you can see, as you're getting more warmed up, you're getting a little bit more bowl speed. So that happens as you go through a fitting process. So it's going to be important for me to pay attention to that, because if your club speed changes, your gapping is going to change. So because you have 45 degrees of loft on that wedge, your bowl speed should be higher than a 50-degree wedge. 50-degree wedge should also be higher than a 54. So we'll be testing that.
Okay.
And your smash factor also should be higher because there's also less loft on the club. Spin rate. So yeah, we're closer about that 9,000 mark with regards to the spin. So as I mentioned, 9 to 10. Now it depends on how you deliver the club. I know when I hit a pitching wedge, I'm about 8,000 spin. My attack angle is quite significantly different to yours. We take a look here, notice how it says negative 6.4. That's just telling me that you're a little bit steeper with your attack angle. So I know there's a couple of shots you hit thin, but I'm going to guess, on your crisp shots outside, you probably take a divot.
Yeah, I usually take a divot. I've been trying to shallow it out, but
that's important for me to pay attention to, because as I mentioned, bounce is going to be key for us to focus on here today. And generally speaking, if you have a steeper attack angle, we probably want a little bit more bounce on the wedges. And you mentioned in the intro there that you liked having that 16-degree bounce wedge that you.
I do, yeah. I know I'm a little steep, so I mean, bounce seems to be my friend when I'm on the golf course.
So we know we can, talking about SM8 wedges, we can probably eliminate the L grind. The L grind is the low bounce wedge. 60-degree wedge has 4 degrees of bounce on it. We don't need to go that direction. So good numbers. Right around about 130 is what we're seeing here with your numbers. As I mentioned, we'll pay attention to this because this can change. Because right now we've got a wide range between 125 and 135 there. So we'll pay attention to that. Why don't you grab your 50-degree wedge, just so we can take a look. We'll do a little gapping analysis here and see how the new wedges kind of fit in. I apologize, whoever's watching right now. We've got some movement going on behind us here. Busy time of the year with new clubs coming in, I guess. That one's a little heavy?
Yeah, that was heavy.
Good question here as you're hitting these. Some have said it's better to use the gap wedge / a wedge that is from the same set as your irons. Truth there or another opinion? So I have this conversation a lot. I would say it's based on skill level. If your skill level, if you're a very, very skilled golfer and you like to chip and pitch with your gap wedge, I would go with the more versatile wedge, the wedge that's not with the set. If it's just a gapping club and all you do is hit full swings with it, and your skill level, maybe you're a little higher handicap golfer, then do that gap wedge with the set.
I see. Yeah, I like using it around the green too. So I like this club a lot. Ooh, that was thin. One heavy, one thin.
That's all right.
That was a little better.
Yep. So we noticed that one was better. We noticed what happened to the spin on that shot. 10,000 RPMs of spin. It's got more loft on it. It should spin a little bit more as long as you do a full swing with it.
Yeah, that was about right there.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Let's hit a couple more. We'll take those first 2 away. Because we know we missed it those ones.
Yeah.
Yep. 10,000 RPMs of spin.
Little thin on that.
A little thin. I think that one, I would consider that as acceptable based on what we're seeing with those numbers.
Yeah.
So, and yes, there's one there, once again, 110. If you look at those last 3, your carry distance, you're kind of hovering just under 120 yards. You got this one here that was kind of like 125, so you can maybe take that one out there too. So, basically 130 to like 118 is what we're seeing with those carry numbers. 12-yard gap is pretty good. So I like that. I like kind of 10 to 15, depending on how fast that you're swinging at it. So that's pretty good. We are noticing, if we break this down a little bit more, let's just see that you are swinging almost the same speed. So that's probably part of the reason why that gap is also a little bit closer there too. So as I mentioned, you hit the pitching wedge earlier on. Maybe if we go back to hitting the pitching wedge now that you're even more warmed up, you might generate a little more speed and we might see more separation there. So I actually do want to do that again. But we do notice when you have more loft on a wedge, more spin, 96.60 versus 89.49 when you're hitting the pitching wedge. But yeah, noticing not much separation in between those 2 club speeds. But we are seeing a significant separation here between the 2 ball speeds. That's intriguing, and I always like to kind of fit to ball speed. So that's just telling me that weren't hitting that 50-degree wedge either as good, or you're even still leaving a little bit of distance on the table with that pitching wedge. So there's some separation there based on what we're seeing with that ball speed number.
Okay.
So actually, let's jump back to pitching wedge here. I want you to hit a couple more. I want to see if that we're actually seeing that the 135 number here with wedge.
Yeah, I want to say I could get a couple more yards.
A couple more good solid strikes.
Okay.
I got a question here too. What about grips? Do you feel different on wedges as opposed to irons, drivers, or is that down to feel? You know, I would play the same size grip all the way through the set. And I know you're playing a mid-size. You got the MCC. Is that the +4?
Yeah, it
mid-size?
is. And I got different wraps on different wedges. So
Yep.
I kind of go up as the wedge goes down.
Okay.
Higher in loft.
Yeah.
So
it's so player dependent, and it really depends on what the player's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I play the same all the way through. Same. I just have one wrap of tape underneath my standard grip for all my clubs, but it just really depends on what you're trying to achieve with each club.
Sure.
Yeah. Such player dependent. This game's all player dependent.
Yeah. That was thin.
Thin, a little bit more ball speed. Didn't quite hit that one as solid.
No, definitely out on the toe or something there.
Let's hit one more. There we go. Good ball speed number there.
That should be
Yeah,
about right there.
Kind of right around that 135 that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to note, because you mentioned 135 was your number right there, but when you were hitting the 50, you know, your furthest you hit was 120.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, you know, we're talking 15-yard gap. It's, you know, almost too far.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but I didn't know if that was correct or not, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, so you had mentioned to me that you were interested in even replacing your pitching wedge. You were talking about SMH. You mentioned like a 46.
Mm-hmm.
We have the 46. So I do want to just see where that fits in,
Okay.
compared to a little more cast iron that you're, well, I guess you're our forged, right?
Forged,
They're
yeah,
our
this one's
here.
forged.
But as opposed to the wedge with the set versus the wedge without the set there too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give you, we have the 46 degree SM8 wedge. And with the SM8 wedge, there's only one grind available with the 46. Actually, 46, 50, 48, 50, and 52 is the F grind. F grind is more designed for square faces, just kind of like a full sole wedge where you're not really opening and closing the club face with it, because we're not really doing that with those clubs anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't quite hit that one as solid.
Haven't been hitting too many solid.
There you go.
Yeah, that was better.
Yep. Better, but not as much ball speed.
Yeah, just the yardage ain't there. It's just. See if I can loosen up a little bit.
102.
Curious on that one. Yeah, that felt the best there. Yeah.
Yep. You pulled that one just a touch.
Oh, maybe that's why I felt the best.
Okay, so I got to ask you, how's that feel versus, say, your pitching wedge?
I definitely feel the ball more on the face. It feels a lot softer, I guess, is how I'd say it.
What about level of forgiveness?
I would say a little less, for sure.
I would agree.
But I like to think if I'm swinging a little better, it might. But I suppose these are just a little harder to hit than my current wedge.
So I know we had a question about gap wedge with the set. So what about pitching wedge with the set? That's another one, and the tour players are split on it. You know, with a 46-degree Volkey wedge, you're not going to be prone to flyers with it. The way the wedges are designed, you're not going to get a flyer out of the rough. So that's the nice thing with it. Spin consistency is also really good there too. I play a pitching wedge with the set. I've tried a 46 or a 40, you know, that's a Volkey wedge, and I just liked playing the wedge with the set. That's just my personal feel. But if once again, it's going to come down to feel and I guess your ability with the wedge. And I don't usually fit a lot of people into the 46-degree with the wedge unless they're specifically asking for it. Yeah, so that's one thing to kind of talk about. And let's look here. Bring up your dispersion with this here too, and you can see you've only got like five shots in there, and you'll notice maybe a little bit more kind of left and right already with this when you're hitting the wedge with the set, with the exception of the one you left maybe face a little bit open. They're a little bit closer together, so that's what we're seeing there between the two of them there too. So if it was me, I probably would stick with the wedge with the set for you, and then we kind of gap from there. Okay. And maybe we tweak your pitching wedge a degree weaker, or maybe we tweak the 50-degree a degree stronger to help with that, to try and keep that gapping analysis with the clubs.
Okay, yeah. Whatever you think, because I mean, I definitely want the tightest circle, you know, as far as, especially with that yardage. So
yeah,
I do like the feel of it though. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna feel really good. So I mean, if you tell me, at the end of the day, you're the one that's in the golf club, not me. If you want to go that route, I'm okay with it. But I'm just gonna say your level of forgiveness is gonna drop just a little bit with the wedge, without the set versus with the set.
Sure.
Yeah.
Should I hit a couple more?
Yeah, hit a couple more, and then we'll kind of work through the bag here.
Okay.
So we got a comment on here from Jeff. He says, really like watching a fitting with a person who doesn't hit it perfect every time, can relate more to my game. Really appreciate him for putting himself out there. So we all appreciate you for coming in for a fitting and doing this live. It's it's not easy, and put yourself under the gun a little bit, which is on the golf course you're under the gun, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, competitive, I guess, pressure almost.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
No, I have a blast, so I enjoy coming out. Still ain't quite right. I'll hit one more, I guess.
And I'm also getting a few comments here, analyzing your swing. In a fitting, I'm not going to analyze your swing, and I'm not going to tell you to do this or do that. Your swing is your swing. Now, I can definitely recommend you to a PGA professional if you're looking to work on your game, but I'm not going to tell you during a fitting, hey, you need to, I don't know, transfer your weight, or you need to cock the wrist or something like that, because that can turn a fitting into a lesson, and all of a sudden it's 50 minutes later and we haven't achieved anything. So,
sure, yeah, you don't get done.
I don't want to go down that route. And I know people, on social media, people comment, they'll comment about someone's swing, and just, keep in mind that your swing is your swing, and it takes a lot of effort to make a swing change.
Yeah, it takes a little time. Hair thin there.
Yeah. So, do we have a verdict between?
Yeah, I guess I'd probably rather keep my wedge in there than this, just because it is less forgiving. So
yeah, so like I mentioned, if we see the gapping being a little bit off, we can always tweak the loft a little bit with the others to make it work. I like the wedge with the set for you.
Yeah.
Now, I will say your irons are a little older too, so maybe we'll have to do an iron fitting with you.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
probably next.
That's kind of the next step there as well. So.
Oh yeah.
But I don't see all of a sudden you're going to fit into like a game improving iron that's going to be longer, stronger, loft. So I'm not too worried about if we fit you into wedges and all of a sudden the wedges are wrong for the irons with your bag.
Oh, I see.
So it would still be around about that, probably that 45-degree loft with the pitching wedge regardless.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I do want to look at 50-degree again.
Okay.
So this here is the SM8.
8 degrees.
And with the 50-degree with the SM8, there are 2 bounce options. So I mentioned it's still F grind. So it's the only grind that you can get with Volkey in this. But there's an 8-degree and a 12-degree.
Okay.
So I like that because then we can give you a little bit more versatility in your bag.
Okay.
Yeah, so I gave you an 8. We may not end up going with the 8. I just wanted to see your distance in regards to gapping here and see how close it is to your 50-degree.
Okay.
A little bit more spin. That was good.
Yeah, that one felt a little bit better. That one. I hit it pretty center there. Yeah.
Bryan, you're 6 feet tall, right?
Yeah, right at 6 feet.
Yeah. So as I was taking a look at your clubs when you got here, I did measure your clubs, and industry standard is always a little bit different in regards to length, but generally speaking, 37 inches is standard for a 7-iron. I measured your 7-iron, it was like 37 and a half. And I think you thought they were standard, right?
Yeah, I kind of thought they were standard, but I wasn't exactly sure. You know.
So I'm curious, maybe a little bit off topic, but this is probably important to bring up as the length of the club. I'm curious to see what you're hitting on the face. So if we notice here, we're catching it maybe just a little bit lower on the face when you're hitting that 50-degree wedge, a little bit lower on the face here when you're hitting the 46. Let's see if that trend continues. Your pitching wedge, yeah, it was maybe a little bit closer. It was a little maybe more toe side there as well. So what we notice here on your clubs that are a little bit longer, you're catching maybe a little more on the toe side. We'll notice, now I've given you standard length clubs. We'll notice standard length clubs maybe being a little bit lower and a little bit more closer to the middle there as well. So I find it interesting that we've been below the equator every single time. So I actually just want to try something out. I want to give you a club that we do have a longer 50-degree wedge, just to see what happens to your strike location here.
You're hoping it brings the equator up?
I would like to see it brought up just a little bit more. And you catch it low on the face, you're just not going to get the ball's going to launch a little bit lower, and your ball speed's always going to be just a little bit lower as well. I'm just curious to see what happens to your strike location here. You know, you're 6 feet tall. You're right on the bubble. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying we need to have a +inch golf shaft, but your irons technically are +1/2 in length. I usually recommend 2 things when it comes to wedge length. Stay the same all the way through, or make a transition and go just a little bit shorter with your wedges. So if you're +1/2, I might recommend +1/4 with your wedges with regards to length.
Oh, okay.
I just kind of noticed, yeah, you're catching a lot of balls low on the face, and you've said a few times that you've got the ball a little bit thin. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious to see what happens here if we make a little bit adjustment here. And
okay. Yeah.
In the length. Okay.
Felt like that was on the toe, but.
Let's take a look. Yeah, more on the toe side there.
But it got up a little higher.
It did get up a little higher. Yep. It was actually slightly above the equator there.
Okay.
Slightly below there.
Yeah, that didn't feel good.
That sounded a little bit more solid.
Yeah, that was better. Stay behind the ball a little bit.
Yep. There you go. That was
That's where you want it.
That's where you want it, right there, yeah.
Well, let's see if I can do that again, though. little maybe towards the toe.
Yeah. I noticed a comment here. The club here is actually plus a half. I'm probably going to recommend for you, maybe not. You know, we can either go plus a quarter or plus a half with regards to length. So either keeping it the same at plus a half, or going at plus a quarter. No, but we'll notice what's happened here to your strike location is you're catching a little bit closer to the middle.
Yeah, it looks better.
Yeah. Little pull there.
Yeah, that wasn't too good.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look and see if that changed at all. So we'll expand that a little bit more. So this is this is a plus a half inch fitting shaft, a little bit closer to the middle of the club. We go here, look where we're at before. It was a little bit lower. So we notice how it shifted a little bit. Impact height was minus 7 millimeters with standard length. Impact height was minus 2. So we moved 5 millimeters. Moved up 5 millimeters in the club face by going a little bit longer with the club.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you have a tendency to catch the ball a little bit thin. As I mentioned, I'm not going to go down swing reasons why that occurs, but it's because you're catching a little thin. We needed to move you just a little bit away from the bottom of the club. So that's what we kind of noticed there too. But if it was me, I would recommend you pitching wedge with the set. I would bend the 50 to 49 to give you the gapping that we kind of need. And yeah, we've got I've got to clean this up a little bit here. Okay. But we'll kind of notice that, yeah, it's going just a little bit further overall. But I would recommend, based on gapping, 4 degrees apart between those two. Does that make sense for length and loft?
Yeah, I mean, I like the length for sure. Yeah, it'd be nice to get it to that 120, and I guess that's where you said, bending it a little. Yeah. So a little stronger would help.
And I haven't deleted any out here. That's 46. Let's go to 50 degree. There's 120 here.
Oh, okay.
That was a better strike. We notice these ones here you didn't maybe hit as solid. You're not swinging actually as fast here either.
No.
But
not swinging
give me a couple more swings. I want to make sure obviously we are at that 120. This last one here was 120, but it was pulled a little bit.
Yeah. Fat.
Yeah.
Seemed like I was swinging better at the driver fitting. I don't know. I love that driver, by the way.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Well, that was Callaway. Was Epic Speed?
Yeah.
Epic Speed.
Yeah. I hit that thing pretty well this year.
All right.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, it's got to be close to 120. There you go. 121.4.
Little left, but
yeah. So one other thing to keep in mind here too, you mentioned a little bit left. If we go a little longer with the club, what does that change the lie angle just a little bit? Plays a little bit more upright. So one thing we actually noticed with your irons when I was checking them, your irons were, I believe when I measured, 61 degrees of lie angle on the 7-iron, which is about 1.5 degrees flat. Which these are all like standard length, so we flatten them out a little bit, and we'll be in the right spot.
Should straighten it out.
It should straighten out a little bit here too.
Okay.
And I also like a flatter lie angle with wedges too, especially those ones if you around the green. So if you end up staying with 58 in the bag and 54, those two for sure be a little bit flatter because it's easier to open the face up with a flatter lie angle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So we're around about 120. Well, we noticed the last couple there were right about 120 carry. 50 is pretty good. The club's a little bit longer, so it's gave you a little bit more club speed. If we need to tweak it, what we could do is we could bend it to 49.5 if you notice that it's going just a little bit short, or you could bend your pitching wedge, 45.5, just to try and keep that consistent gap all the way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with that extra length, that might get me there, in the shaft. So
yeah, just know the ball was going a little further because you were pulling it. So that's why I just wanted to kind of
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. 54. So this is when we start having that conversation about what you like to do with your wedges. Your 54, your 58, your sand wedge, and your lob wedge. Those are the wedges that you play around the green with. And I'm actually going to come up here, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit here. I'm going to grab the 354s that that Titleist offers here.
Okay.
And you want a little bit more bounce on this club.
Definitely.
So first let me ask you, with your 54, do you open and close the club face with this one?
I do, yeah. I pretty much use this around the green 90% of the time, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so with that being said, so I already have 3 54s in my hand. I got a 5410S, I got a 5414F, and I got a 5412D. The F grind is the square face grind. We're already going to have that in the 50. So I'm probably going to eliminate this one,
but
even though it's got the most bounce. Yeah. Just knowing that you like to open and close the club face.
Okay.
12 degrees of bounce is still a decent amount of bounce on the wedge.
Okay.
At the other end of the spectrum, the S grind's for a golfer who likes to kind of push their hands forward, push their hands back. It's a little bit narrow, but it has a little bit more of a beveled edge on the back of it. If it was me, for your sand wedge, M grind would be the version that has less bounce on it for the golfer that likes to open and close the club face with their club. In Titleist, they came out with a D grind. D grind has 4 degrees more bounce on it. This is for a golfer that has a little steeper attack angle, plays on a little bit softer turf, that needs a little bit more bounce. So if it was me, I would actually recommend for you the 54 D grind.
D grind, okay.
D grind. So I want you to hit a few of this. And inside, it's hard. Inside fitting, I'm going to say this now. It's hard to all of a sudden say test these different bounces and grinds out. When you're hitting off artificial turf, you're not going to feel the difference.
Sure.
To mention, a lot of this is conversation based. This is me just finding out what you like to do with your game. Okay. So.
And this is standard length?
This one is standard length, yes. I don't have a longer one in that one. I have a 5410 that's longer, but let's just see kind of where this fits in with regards to gapping wise.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right close to 100.
Yeah, and see, usually I would get 110 is what I'd like to get out of it, or what I used to get out of it.
I only left the face a little bit more open on. So it's spun a little bit more and it didn't go as far.
Okay.
I got a question here. How many degrees is that D grind? So right now we're hitting the 54 degree D grind. You can get a D grind in 54 all the way up to 60. So 54, 56, 58, and 60 is offered for the bulky wedge.
Yeah, that was thin. But on those other two, it didn't seem like I hit them that bad, and they only went 100 yards. So.
Let's see here. Let's see. This. Let's go to this one here. It's interesting. So we go back to a little bit shorter club, and now we're kind of hanging on a little bit more on the heel, as opposed to before with the longer club, you're kind of a little more so in the middle. So hit location is going to be important. So you're going to have to, and I can grab that longer 154 here for you to hit it if you really want to know the loft gapping with a longer club. But you're going to want to trust me on the length and the loft here.
Okay.
The other thing too to keep in mind is there's a saying out there that I can't remember who said it. It's to do with any golfer that hits a full swing with their 54, 56, 60 degree wedge, the golfer would play them for money any day of the week. Because what happens when you hit a full swing with your sand wedge or a lob wedge is it's hard to control. It's going to spin more. It's harder to flight. And I'm hoping someone on the chat here can remind me who said that saying here. But basically, is like along the lines of, I'll play anyone for money as long as if anyone that plays a full swing with their wedges. So a lot of it comes down to that clock system. So I ask you, do you have different distances with your wedges or anything like that?
I do. I have kind of like the clock system, like a 3 here, but now that you say that full swing with the wedges, I don't know if I watched a video or something, but yeah, they said that going 3/4 with your wedges, the dispersion's a lot tighter.
It's a lot tighter
than with your full swing. So they actually said, go down a wedge and go 3/4 versus hitting a full wedge.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
so.
your wedges are your scoring clubs, and you really want to. Arnold Palmer. There you go. So you want to flight the ball with your wedges, and I do have a full swing distance with my 56 if I have to hit up over a tree or something like that. But really only goes 5 yards further than my 1030 swing. It's just a different flight, essentially.
Sure. Yeah,
so you gotta almost rely on knowing that there's a 4-degree gap in the loft between the wedges, even if you're not seeing all of a sudden that it's going that distance. Yeah.
Just because I'm not hitting it as well.
It's not hitting as well. Yeah.
I got you.
But let's hit a couple more of that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just. But now you still think I should go a little bit longer though in this?
I would go just a little bit longer with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like.
Knowing that your irons are like +1/2. Yeah.
And go a little flatter.
And go a little bit flatter, yes. Knowing that your irons are a little bit flatter. Just, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've hit one in the center yet. I'd like to see how far that goes.
There we go. That one sounded like it had a little more ball speed to it.
That should be better, but still only 101,
102.
102. And
yeah.
At what spin rate does you start to check the ball back, I guess? Like 12,000 or? Because I seem like
it depends on the height the ball is flying. It depends on how fast someone is hitting it. We know your carry is 101.7 going at 102.7.
Yeah, it seems to be running out that
Yeah,
yard.
and another thing here is, tour players, they don't want to spin the ball back. They want to be able to control. They want to stop on a dime. It's fun to put backspin on the ball, but it comes down to attack angle. So if you're hitting down on it steeper and you're swinging really hard at it, you're kind of cutting across it a little bit, that's how you can generate spin on the wedge. Your club path is a little bit more in to out. You play a little bit of a draw, and your attack angle, you're like -5. You're not going to spin the ball if your club path is in to out and hitting in a draw. It's not going to come ripping back. If you're going to hit a cut shot, so if you had a front right pin and firm greens, you may want to try and feel like get a little fade into that flag. That's when you have the opportunity to get the ball to stop a little bit faster. A lot of it's ball flight and curve. But with your club path, that last shot's a good example. Your club path was 6 degrees in to out. Your face angle was closed 2 degrees. So your face path is like -7.9. It's going to curve to the left, and that's just going to lead to a little bit less spin. We can look at your higher spinning wedges. Let's see your highest spinning wedge and see what happened to the. I'm looking to see if there's any here that is around about 10,000. So 10,727, 98.7 carry, total 98.2. So when you do generate more spin, yeah, it's going to spin back a little bit. But to do that, we'll notice what happened. Your club path wasn't as far in to out. Your face angle was actually a little bit open. So you compare the two face to path numbers between those two swings there. We're talking -1.4 versus -7.9. So a lot of that's going to come down to your ability to work the ball both directions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but so you lose a little bit of distance with that fade versus the draw?
You do, yeah. If you're fading a little bit more because your face is a little bit more open, you're adding a little bit more loft to the club. I'm going to bring up one other number. This is always a fun question because I get this question quite a bit, and we actually shot a video on this recently on trying to spin the ball backwards. Dynamic loft. So this particular shot here, your dynamic loft was 41.5 degrees. We go, I believe this is last shot here. Your dynamic loft was 38.6. So this particular shot, you actually had 3 degrees less loft on the golf club. Yeah, it's going to go further because there's less loft on the golf club presented at impact. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to go shorter because you had more loft on the golf club presented at impact. So so face angle, compression, all the above there. Just because you're not seeing your numbers of exactly being 10 or 15 yards apart here, doesn't mean it won't happen. It's just purely the loft on the golf club is going to relate to it, and it's going to come down to how you're delivering the golf club.
Yeah, I'm just swinging all over the place.
Yeah, it's right. It's what is it, Jan 13?
Yeah.
How much golf have you played in the last 3 months?
I played like in November, which didn't seem that far away, but I guess it's been pretty far away. But yeah.
You just got to trust the loft on the golf club.
Yeah, I
let the loft do its job. Yeah, so that was it. Good ball speed there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But because your face to path, was -5, it's not going to spin at that 10,800 where we saw, but that was pretty good. That's basically stopped on a dime. Carry 102.7, go on 102.2.6.
Okay.
Did you want to hit the longer wedge?
I mean, I'd be curious how to see.
Just to see here. All right, while you're hitting that, I'm just going to jump to a couple of questions here. First question I'm seeing here, thoughts on the SM9. I haven't hit it yet. I'm excited to hit it. I know March is when it's going to be available. It's great to see Cameron Smith win last week playing the wedge. So as far as I'm concerned, it's still a prototype wedge, but I know the media is already talking about it. I think Titleist has tweeted SM9, so I think I can say that it's coming out. Does he realize it won't go as far as his old wedge because the one spins? That's actually a great point. So your wedges, these wedges have new grooves. Your old wedges have old grooves. Remember I talked about that formula that Titleist would recommend? Mm-hmm. So Titleist says every 75 rounds of golf, you're going to see a difference in about 1,000 RPM of spin. I'm going to guess you probably played more than 75 rounds of golf
probably.
With your 50, based on what I'm seeing, how much wear is on the club face. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that could be, you're getting more spin now. More spin is going to lead to less distance. You think about a driver fitting. The goal is high launch, low spin. Low spin is going to lead to more distance. We're kind of doing the opposite here. So just know that newer grooves is going to lead to more spin and consistently more spin.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and someone always said, yeah, he's been pretty consistent here, 95, 100 to 10K almost every time, 100 yards. It's a pretty good stock number. I mean, yeah, you might need to change a little bit. You might swing a little bit faster when you're playing outside come April or March, and whoever knows when we can play.
Yeah.
But
but
just know that you're probably not swinging at 100% like we were maybe later in the fall, since you haven't played golf since November.
Yeah. I do like this extra ½ inch here. For some reason, I don't know. It seems like
it's probably a posture thing. It's probably a comfort thing. You're playing, plus ½ an inch in your irons right now. You're 6 feet. You're on the bubble with regards to what I'd recommend for going longer or going shorter. Yeah.
I don't know how my contact on the face is. If that was a little bit more towards the center. Seemed like those last 3 shots I hit pretty good.
Yeah, we're noticing it's going just from a little bit here to just a little bit more out there.
It feels a lot better on the face when and maybe it's just a little bit more confidence or something I have. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it seems a lot better.
Another comment here, mid-handicappers are mid-handicappers because they are trying to beat the crap out of their wedges to get more yards. As I mentioned, it's important gapping, because that's the same kind of thing is what we're talking about, is you don't need a full swing with those wedges. They're your scoring clubs. Dial them in with your clock system. If you hit a 9 o'clock 54 versus, I don't know, a 10:30 60, I would much rather the 9 o'clock 54, because it's going to come on a little bit lower trajectory and it's going to be easy to control. You get a little bit more elements of outside play. You get some wind, you get some soft greens, you get different flag positions. You got some flag positions where you know you can't go long of you, and then leave yourself a bad shot coming back. That's how their handicaps get a little bit higher, because they just don't know how to hit those shots. Yeah. I mentioned I don't hit anything more than a 10:30 swing. I love hitting a lot of 9 o'clock swings where the ball's going to bounce and skid and stop, as opposed to fly past the flag and spin back.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been trying to kind of transition to, is hitting a lower lofted shot and using my 50 instead of my 54, or vice versa, because I don't know.
Your 56 or 54 and 58 and 60, they're a little more specialty wedges.
It seems like I really don't use my 60 much anymore.
Well, you got a 58, right?
Oh, 58. Sorry, 58. Yeah. So
it's nice to have in the bag, but I don't recommend to chip with it all the time.
Yeah.
I don't recommend to hit wedge shots with it all the time. But I mean, 56 degrees wedge is a lot of loft, or 54 is a lot of loft on the wedge. You can always open the face up a little for that one too. We're going to go with the D grind. It allows you to open and close the face, because the way the toe end and the heel of the club is, it provides you that opportunity.
Yeah, I actually almost feel more confident just opening up the 54 versus going to my 58 for some reason.
Yeah. It's going to come down to what you like to do with your game. Yeah, I agree with Ken here. Compression is one important factor. That's going to be shown in that dynamic loft number. So your dynamic loft is about 3 degrees lower than before, and that's why it went just a little bit further. What's a good range in terms of spin numbers for 52, 56, and 60? Once again, it depends on how hard you're swinging at it, what kind of swing you're putting on it, if it's a full swing, if it's a 10:30 or 9 o'clock swing. You're going to be around about, if you're swinging fast and you're hitting down it with a steeper attack angle, it's going to be around about 10,000 RPMs a spin. I'll say, I can only get 10,000 RPMs to spin myself if I try and hit a little cut and I try and have a steep attack angle. But it's going to depend. Love the shout out here for Larry Bobka advice. Play the shot needed. I like that. Yep. That one you hung back on. I don't know if you noticed that, but your dynamic loft was like 42.4.
Oh,
and that's why it went shorter.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
It just seemed like I was hitting it so left there. I tried to hit a little straighter, and maybe that's kind of what I did.
No more ball speed there. No, I mean, it's 100 yards.
Yeah, it just seems like seems like I'm not hitting it that bad. Like, it shouldn't be that big of a gap, but I don't know. Just doesn't seem like I'm hitting it that well either, I guess. But whoa, that one definitely was.
We can get rid of that one. That never happened.
Yeah, the ball didn't even come back. It was so bad. So should I even try a 58, or I mean, like, it doesn't even seem like I'm getting yardage out of
I've
this.
looked at your bag, and you have room for it in the bag.
Oh yeah.
You don't. I think you've got 12 or 13 clubs in your bag, so you have room. It's your call. You've had a 58 in the past. You said that you have used it.
Yeah, I've used it, but
you've used it.
And actually, the only reason I used it as much as I did is because I lost like a different 54 degree, so I just didn't grab that one back. So I was using it around the greens a lot, and I just found that I wasn't doing very well, chipping around the greens, especially 30, 40-yard shots. I really don't like using it that often. So the only shot I really use it for is when I really have to hit a flop shot or something like really high and stop it.
Which occurs on the golf course.
It does.
It does come up if you hit a shot over a tree. knowing that you've got room in your bag for it, I'd put it in there.
Yeah.
But just know that it's a versatile wedge. It's there to be used for specialty shots. Mm-hmm. It's not there, and you get the idea. You're not there to chip with every single time. If you've got a flag that's way up the green and you're just off the edge of the green, you're not going to hit that 58 because you want to hit more of a bump and run shot. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to pull the 60 every time you're just 58. Sorry, every time you're just around the green. And
should I go a little less bounce in that 58 versus?
So we would go with the 50 that has 12 degrees of bounce. The 54 has also has 12 degrees of bounce. So we'll notice we don't have really that much versatility there. So I would actually, yes, I would go the 58 and probably put like 10 degrees of bounce on it. Just because we know if we got the 58 D grind in there as well, it also would have 12 degrees of bounce on it. So if you ever get you play central Wisconsin, we sometimes get points where we don't get rain for a while. You might play in some firmer conditions possibly. What are the bunkers like that you play in?
I mean, I kind of play all over, so it's really sporadic. Some are heavier, some are pretty thin. Most of the time they're pretty thin, I would say, where you almost got to dig in a little bit to get some sand out.
Yeah.
So,
well, the fact that you play all over, we definitely want to change that bounce up. We don't want to just go 12, 12, 12. We want a little bit different bounce and a little different grind, just knowing that you can play in different sand all the time or different turf. You want the 58 in there? I'd put the S grind 58 in there. I don't think you need a K grind where you got 14 degrees of bounce on it. I would want maybe one that's just got a little bit less bounce.
Okay. But you still wouldn't go any higher in this 54, like 12 or like.
Well,
this
54,
is a 10.
The only option that you've got is
like 14
14 is the highest. Yeah, and that's the F grind.
But
you like your 54. You like to open and close the club face with your 54.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I like kind of how this sets up and stuff when I move it around a little bit here. So, yeah, I mean, I guess 12 is probably fine, obviously, but.
Yeah, 12's plenty of bounce.
All right.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm curious to hit some full shots with the 58 just because.
Yeah, we can look at the numbers and see. And I actually have a little longer one here too, so we can see here as well. Okay. So what's a good target for dynamic loft in relation to the club loft? It depends on the shot you're trying to hit. If you're trying to open up the face, you want that dynamic loft to be higher. If you're trying to compress the bowl, you probably want to be about maybe 8 degrees less loft on the dynamic loft versus the wedge that you're playing. Yeah, sorry. Depends on the wedge, the club that you're playing. So an iron, you're going to want to have a little less. With a wedge, you can want to maybe compress it a little bit more. So 10 degrees. You definitely don't want the same amount of dynamic loft as what the loft is stated on the club. We got a question here. Thomas would love to see you dial in grinds with some 10 to 30 yard shots. It's a little bit more challenging inside, hitting off artificial turf to really dial that in. In an ideal world, I'd take you out to a green outside and we'd hit those shots. This part is just a lot like conversational based and understanding what Bryan is looking for in his wedge game, as opposed to what he needs on the type of golf courses he plays. You actually want more bounce with soft turf. So I mean, it's a question here. So you want less bounce with soft turf and vice versa. Actually, you want to have more bounce with softer turf. You want to have less bounce with firmer turf. So you see the guys on the PGA Tour, and they will, they actually have a couple of different wedges, and I think Cameron Smith, he actually brought this up. He has, when you put the SM9 in his bag, you know, he plays a 60-10, but he also S grind, but he also has, might be M grind, but he actually has a T grind as well in his higher lofted wedge, and that T grind is a very, very low bounce wedge, and depends on the course you're playing, but also the conditions you play. When these guys start going down to Texas, you know, when the conditions are firmer, they'll play less bounce on their wedges.
I'd say if I could hit all my wedges like that every time, like that felt pretty good. So I don't know if.
Well, I also kind of like, you didn't change your swing up, so I'm looking at the dynamic loft. We were around about 39 degrees when you were hitting the 54.
Yeah.
You're at 43.5 there on the 58. So
okay.
We're seeing 4-degree difference. So
that's that's what we're looking.
That's
okay.
good.
That was probably the best one I maybe hit, but. A little higher spin there.
Yep. Hit that one maybe is
a little heavy.
Solid.
Yeah.
Still a decent amount of spin. That's the loft. More loft on a club is going to lead to more spin.
And you said this one is a little longer?
It's a little longer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Feels pretty good.
A little longer, yet a little bit flatter. And
okay.
it would be more ideal.
Yeah, it feels pretty good. I mean, hitting it all right. Seems like about a little less than 90 yards is kind of how far it goes.
Yeah, just a little bit less than 90 yards. Okay, I want you to do something for me here. We'll grab that 54 again.
Okay.
Give me a 9 o'clock swing.
Okay.
Give me a shot here.
Just like a.
So 9 o'clock would be on the clock system would be back to here. So right there. Yeah.
Okay.
Still want to turn through onto your left side.
Okay.
I'll just add a tad here. 9 o'clock. Because remember these numbers here.
Okay.
10,700 spin, carry 90 yards.
Should almost have about the same yardage, but different.
Should be a lot less spin. Yep.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. Pretty much the same yardage.
Pretty much the same yardage, about 1,000 RPMs less spin.
And the loft is a little bit lower.
Yep.
Because we were at what, 44 before, or?
So the dynamic loft, you're like 43.5 when you're hitting the 58.
Oh.
Yeah, you're around about 40 with the 54.
Ooh, shanked that one.
That's all right. So that's one thing you're gonna have to get used to here too is when you do shorten your backswing, you still want to make sure you turn onto your left side. That one you quit on a little bit. You were trying to take distance off by not swinging it as fast. So your club speed dropped, and you've got to turn that club face over.
Okay. Yeah, that one went a little bit further.
Went a little bit further.
I went a little further.
So I challenge you to learn these numbers, write them down with your 58. I think you get 58. I for sure. You've got room in your bag.
Yeah.
To have it in there, and in the distance that you're hitting it, there's room. So you're still hitting at 90 yards when you're hitting a full swing. You're gonna probably have a 70 or 60 yard 9 o'clock swing with that club. I would recommend to learn 9 o'clock and 10:30 with each club. Write them down, know what they are, and then when you get on the golf course in the spring, even if you need to learn them in the spring, but earlier on in the season, you'll get those numbers. Like you're licking your chops. You'll be like, huh, I got an 80-yard shot. I know my 9 o'clock 54 goes that distance or whatever. my wedge game's gonna be on point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Just have that confidence and know it's going to go that yardage is the key. Especially. I seem to have a lot more of those shots this year just because I had been hitting my driver pretty well. I mean, it didn't equate to lower scores because I wasn't hitting the ball very close to the pin, so that just felt like I was wasting all my good drives basically all year. Yeah. I was hitting it well, but I just wasn't scoring well. So, where in the past I was hitting it bad, but I was scoring well. So I don't know. Yeah. Scores were about the same no matter what. I don't know.
So that's my, bit of instruction, I guess. I'm not telling you to change your grip, change your setup, or anything like that. All I'm telling you is just learn those distances with your wedges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any questions on this wedge fitting to follow up on?
No, I don't think so. I think answered all of my questions, I guess.
Yeah. So wedge with the set, just to summarize, 50 degree. I'm going to keep it where it is right now. Now, if we notice there's still too little bit of gap, what my first recommendation to change would probably be the 50 degree, maybe like 49.5, just a little bit stronger. It'll tighten up about 2 yards of difference there. Mm-hmm. You also can go 45.5 maybe with the pitching wedge, but if that's going to be going to come down to that's going to be the biggest gap, because knowing right now if you go 45, 50, 54, 58, you got a 5, then you got 4, then you got 4. So that's probably be the biggest spot. You said you weren't really seeing you're seeing the numbers that you liked, so that's why we're not touching it right now. Mm-hmm. But just know that's where we might see the biggest issue, with regards to gapping. Then, so 50 degree, 54, we want the D grind. The D grind with the Vokey SM8 or SM9, whatever one we end up deciding to wait, if we decide to wait or if we decide to go with the SM8, is it allows you to open and close the club face, but it's got more bounce on it. Bounce is your friend. We talked about forgiveness. You said you wanted more bounce. We chose that one over the F grind because the F grind is a square face, club face design, and you like with your sand wedge, that's basically your club that you use a lot. Yeah, so that's why you need heel and toe relief with your 54, and then 58, a little bit less bounce. Still 10 degrees of bounce. We're not going like 4 or 8 or anything like that. With the S grind, versatility. You don't play the same golf course every single time. You change it up. So it's important to have different bounces and different grinds to allow you to change up the shots when you need to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then length. We'll go just a little bit longer than standard. Your irons are, they're +1/2. So I think this is. You said you like the longer clubs.
I did. Yeah.
The only recommend maybe I would say is going to be maybe +1/4 instead of +1/2. But if you like +1/2 and keeping it consistent all the way through, I'm down with that there as well. Lie angle, we're going to go just a little bit flatter. We can bring up your dispersion pattern. We can, this is the center line right here. So we'll notice
everything's left to center.
Everything's just a little bit left there. If we go just a little bit longer with the club tool, so it plays just a little bit more upright there too. So I would knock the club a little bit flatter. To probably match up what we're seeing with your irons. Your irons are 1.5 degrees flat. Yeah, so that's gonna talk about hit location. The length's gonna help, but also the lie angle is gonna help. And then 54, 58, it's gonna be nice to have a flatter wedge as well, because if you want to open that face up, if you have an upright club, it's so much harder. It's harder to hit the middle of the face. Sure. Yeah. So, any other you got questions on that stuff? No. Golf shaft. That's the other one we didn't touch on here is golf shaft. Yep. And I've been kind of looking at your club speed when you were hitting, say the pitching wedge earlier on. I think we're about 82 miles an hour. Let's see if we can order this club speed here. Yeah, about 82 miles an hour is what we're seeing here. We start going up towards 7-iron. That's probably going to be around about 86 miles an hour with a 7-iron. You play the 6.0 Project X, kind of where I'm not going to change that shaft up at all. So what we could do there is kind of just match up those golf shafts and keep it consistent. Since you did that with your wedges in the past, seemed like you not telling me you didn't like it. So I would just go a little bit longer, plus a quarter, +1/2 with those Project X 6.0 shafts that you already got in your irons.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that.
And then the grips, if we can get those grips,
Oh,
that's always the challenge. The grips are a little bit back-ordered. Hopefully, we can get those particular ones. Mid-size for sure. I'd match up with how many wraps that you've got on your irons there, or whatever you want to do.
I actually play like 8 wraps on my sand wedge with the mid-size, and I really like it. But
if you really like it,
yeah,
I'm on board.
Fan. Yeah, I'm a big
if it
fan.
builds your confidence with the club, I'm on board completely. What you got to do there. Grips are just one of the bigger things that hold a lot of orders back.
Sure.
So that's why sometimes I'll even say just get the grip stuck in the box, and then we'll figure the grip out there from there.
Yeah,
because there's a
deal.
supply chain issue with that there too. But yeah, and then it just kind of depends on if you wanted to wait and place an order as soon as we can for new Volkey wedges.
Yeah, I guess.
Or if we wanted to go and place wedge order for SM8s.
I guess I ain't playing a whole lot of golf right now. I guess it's not urgent that I need them, but
right. We get it in early, like as soon as we can. I think you get them in time for the golf season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can wait. I guess it's not a big deal, but I know you said there was not a whole lot of difference probably between them, but
I haven't hit them yet. I'm excited to test them, though. As soon as we can, we'll post once the media embargo date is up. But I'm excited to see how they are. But I'm not gonna. It's not gonna be all of a sudden. It's not chasing ball speed. It's chasing consistency.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'm not going to say that going from SM8 is going to be way better than going to SM9 as opposed to SM7 to SM8. They're wedges. They're designed to go a certain distance.
Yeah.
And so.
As long as you got your other stuff figured out, I mean,
yeah.
They're always going to go the same distance and spin about the same. And what about finish? What kind of finishes
so good question there. That's literally the last thing here. So with Titleist, you have 4 finishes. There's also like a raw finish as well, but you've got the chrome finish. The chrome finish, it's going to be the majority golfers are going to fit in like that one. What I'll say is you don't see wear as fast with the chrome finish. I'm not saying the other two are going to wear faster. It's you just don't see it. So with the jet black, for example, you're going to see some white marks on the face. The nice thing with the jet black or even the brushed steel is if you're outside, it's shiny, you're in some white sand, there's that glare component to it there too. So, if you wear sunglasses and you're playing a sunny day, the chrome's gonna be fine. Just know the chrome sometimes can get a little bit shiny, especially when it's new. I would just say chrome, you're not gonna see the wear as fast. It's really a preference. I'll hand them both to you here. I got the other one.
Oh, okay.
Let me ask you, between those 3, does one look better? Do you like the look of one better overall? I know black is cool, but
I say this one definitely. I like that the best.
The brushed steel.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's a good compromise.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. Do they come with all 3, or the 3 of those models that I was going to get?
You can get so all the lofts, all the bounces and grinds. Yeah, you can do the brushed steel.
Okay.
All the way through with them. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. No, they look awesome.
Yeah, the jet black it's cool looking.
Yeah, it is, but yeah, I like that brushed steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get to a couple of questions here to finish off. We've solved all your questions there. Thanks so much for hitting the shots there. I know you hit quite a few shots there, and a wedge fitting inside, it's not perfect. I'm gonna say that a lot of it is conversation based. So I'm trying to learn a lot about your golf game as we're talking about what you like to do. I love Titleist wedges for that because there's 6 different grinds. There's so many different bounce options. So they make the job so easy for us when it comes to wedge fitting. I could talk to someone for 10, 15 minutes without even really seeing a shot and telling, hey, this is probably what I'd recommend for the bounce and the grind and everything like that.
Sure.
They're good looking clubs, but yeah, the wedge fitting inside it can be a little bit challenging. Ideally, I'd love to be out on a pitching some shots so we can talk about the bounces and the grinds a little bit more. But it sounded to me like you needed more bounce, and with that 54, that's the biggest thing is you need to open and close the club face.
Yeah.
Okay. Good job. I'm going to get to a couple of questions here, and just before we log off here.
Okay.
I think I had a question here earlier too with golf ball. Golf ball fitting recommendation. You use Titleist Pro V1. As we're testing, we're using the RCT ball. You don't. Your spin numbers were in the right spot essentially. I'm not saying you need more spin or less spin. So I like the Pro V1. Now, if you wanted less spin, the Pro V1X might fly a little higher and spin a little bit. Sorry, one more spin, Pro V1X would spin a little bit more and fly a little higher. If you needed less spin in the premium ball category, the AVX would spin a little bit less and fly a little bit lower. I would recommend, from what I was seeing, numbers here, you're already playing the Pro V1, I would stick with the Pro V1.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so higher or lower bounce for chipping with not a lot of wrist setting. Jason Day, Steve Stricker. And I know Steve Stricker, the S grind is actually based a little bit on Steve Stricker, his wedge skill. He likes to leave the face, hold the face with adding a little loft or decreasing a little bit loft by pushing the hands back and forth a little bit. I would say kind of right in the middle with regards to that person. If you're not a lot of wrist setting, that's what I would recommend there. But I'd also want to see their attack angle and what conditions they're playing on first. Well, if you are on hard turf, you can't open the face with high bounce because you will hit a line drive across the green. Yes, I've seen that shot quite a few times. Yes, so if you're playing on firmer conditions, I do recommend less bounce on your wedges. Now, when it comes to that, I'm not saying go with the L grind because the L grind is a very unique wedge. It's 4 degrees of bounce on it. I think it's for the best players in the world. I wouldn't recommend the L grind to many golfers unless they all of a sudden feel it. But it's a challenging wedge, but you get rewarded by having it there. M grind is a good option. Such a good fitting, listened, taught, explained, didn't upsell him on a pitching wedge when he could have. He doesn't need the Volkey wedge. Yeah, I mean, you've got room in your bag for something else. Now, how many clubs do you have now if you have the 58 in your bag?
I think I still got room for 2.
Still got room for one more too. So yeah. Gapping, you can always look at other parts of the bag there.
Yeah,
if I
was
trying to
on the other
upsell, I guess. But no, I'm just trying to do the best for you and what you're looking in your game. And
yeah, it didn't seem like I was good enough to play at 54.
Sorry, you mean the 46.
46. Sorry,
46.
Yeah, 46.
I wouldn't go 46.
No.
New grooves is nice, but that may come with new irons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonder if Bryan can get more distance out of E6 or Titleist tour speed, which he is looking for. Tour speed is actually an interesting ball. Possibly, I mean, probably one is a good ball. He's going to get more ball speed from compression, dynamic loft, rather than the golf ball, though. If you don't want more distance with your wedges, just distance control and spin control. Agree. You're not trying to hit your wedges far. It just comes down to hitting the same yardage every single time. Love recommending a clock system to everyone. It doesn't have to be exactly here, but just know your numbers. Know a couple of different numbers with each club. All right, I'm going to finish on this one because this is kind of a funny comment. Will you ever fit someone into a chipper? No, I won't.
Well, those are illegal yet, aren't they? Or
I don't even know if they're legal, but I've seen them. I know some people have had success with them, but a chipper is, I think it's too gimmicky. I would rather teach them to learn how to hit pitch shots and chip shots around the green first before going the chipper route. All right, I think I'm going to stop there. Bryan, thanks so much for joining us here today. This is a fun wedge fitting. I hope a lot of golfers and viewers learned a lot here about wedging, wedges, grind. We got a little bit into the clock system as well and why it's important. But wedges are your scoring clubs. You got to know your numbers with them, and that's what it comes down to. You swing a full swing with a wedge, it's going to go up in the air, it's going to spin a lot, it's going to be hard to control. So know your distances with the wedges, work on that, and your game will improve a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.